Last week, we saw the apparent death of the Trade Promotion Authority in the House of Representatives. And for this, I go to an article on Mother Jones. Now, that says the House narrowly voted in favor of passing the TPA legislation, 219 to 211. Yeah, but Jeff, you just said that it's dead in the House, but it passed. Well, it's kind of interesting because there was a part of this that didn't pass, and this was called the TAA. Now, what is this? The TAA is called the Trade Adjustment Assistance Bill. What it would do is that it would be intended to compensate workers who are displaced by these trade agreements. Now, Democrats, in a surprising move, they voted against that. And you might be thinking, wait a minute, so Democrats voted against a bill that would help displaced workers. What kind of crap is that? What's going on here? Well, it turns out that there's a reason that they voted against this. Labor unions, of all people, went, hey, you need to vote against this TAA. Now, TAA fits into the TPA as in one package. If one part of it fails, all of it fails, and it gets sent back to the Senate, which is exactly what's happening, and they're actually going to vote on it again tomorrow. So there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of acronyms being thrown around. It's a very difficult bill to wrap your head around, and I think that's by design.
Right.
To confuse and obfuscate the whole issue of the trade bills.
Right. I was going to say that's an important side note for us to point out. You know,
Yes.
the whole thing with TPP in general, a lot of it, first of all, we only know so much because so much of it is just written behind closed doors.
Absolutely.
And they just try to push it through. And that just in and of itself, just the design in and of itself is a huge red flag. And that's something that you always need to kind of carry in your back pocket when you're looking into this stuff.
Absolutely. And what always gets me is President Obama, he's been pushing this very, very hard. And he says, don't worry, guys, it's the most progressive trade agreement we've ever had, which is fun. It's interesting that he says that because we can't look at it to see if he's right or not.
Right, but based on what we know so far, there's a lot of red flags that would indicate
Absolutely.
that is certainly not the case. I mean, there's a lot of environmental concerns. There's a lot of concerns for workers and for unions and stuff like that. There's even some digital rights concerns. There's a lot of red flags in these things and Obama is throwing out a lot of flowery rhetoric here. I mean, another thing that he said, he had the quote, "I'm not going to toe the party line on this one." Now, whenever you hear politicians say that, usually that's associated as a good thing. You know, they have they're willing to cooperate bipartisan, they're willing to reach over the aisle and kind of negate some of the fluff. But really, that was a subtle way of Obama being like, I'm going to be a corporatist on this one and just deal with it.
Absolutely. And now speaking of the party line and speaking of the party itself, as I was saying, the Democrats voted against this the TAA, the Trade Adjustment Assistance Bill. I think partly to defeat the whole thing because they don't agree with it, and also partly because of a proposed $700 million cut in Medicare in order to pay for this TAA. So that's also very interesting. And you saw a lot of Democrats fighting against that, led by, of course, the charge led by labor unions, the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, the American Federation of Teachers, Communication Workers of America, the Teamsters. A lot of these union groups got together and said, you know, if you pass this and cut Medicare to do it, we're going to go against you. We're going to start spending money against you. And I think that's an important thing that Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks pointed out when they were having this discussion last Friday.
Yeah, I like the fact that, you know, the TAA part was an attempt at throwing a bone to the labor unions and to, you know, the Democrats that are against this bill and others against this bill. And I'm glad that people didn't play the politics game and kind of saw through it. And it's like, we're not going to just accept this scrap. This bill's a problem, and we're not going to side with it.
Absolutely. And here's the thing, right? They, as I pointed out earlier, the most progressive trade bill ever. Well, the whole idea that you would need a $2.5 billion program such as the Trade Adjustment Assistance Bill, in order to cover losses of, where your job would be outsourced and you get some sort of compensation for that. That is not a progressive idea. The progressive idea here is to protect your jobs from being outsourced in the first place.
Right. And to have regulations on the
Right.
idea of trade. I mean, trade in and of itself is not a bad thing.
Right.
But when you allow, when with no regulation, you open the door for, predatory capitalism, for outsourcing, for just, corporate protection, and for environmental disasters. Well, then, that's when it becomes a problem. And there's a lot of concerns in this bill as a whole that I think people are responding to, which is a good thing.
Right. And which begs the question, of course, if it's so good for American workers, why do you need this thing protecting American workers for when their jobs ultimately get outsourced by this piece of legislation?
Right. Right. Yet another red flag.
In a long line of other red flags. Now, I did a report as soon as this vote was taken on Friday, and I said, watch out for this. They're going to take this back up on Tuesday, and which is tomorrow. We don't know where it's going to go. It's going to go back to the Senate. Who knows what they're going to try and put in there to make it pass? So this is this vote is a victory, but it is not the end of the war against the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It is not dead yet. We will not rest until it is dead. There is a stake in the heart, and it is buried 6 feet below the ground. And look, going back to what you said before you jump in, it's not as if we're against trade. We're just against bad trade deals. We need
Absolutely.
good trade deals that protect American jobs, as well as bring in, we have a huge trade deficit, right? We import so much more junk from China than we do anywhere else, okay? Than we do ship out. American exports are low. Our imports are high. We're importing a bunch of cheap crap from China that breaks down in 2 years. And, that is not a sustainable model of trade. And that is having huge repercussions on the American workforce. And it's a race to the bottom when it comes to wages and, as you said, regulation and all of this stuff. And to have President Obama call this the most progressive trade deal, if you could tell, it really, really bothers me. Because it's not at all. It is the biggest corporate giveaway that I think we've ever tried to do, in at least my recent memory.
Very much so, and that's why we mentioned those two things he said, the progressive deal and towing the party line. You got to read through the lines and realize what that really means. Obama says a lot of really nice things, but that's not always what's really going on. And the other interesting thing here, as a side note, just on the politics behind all this, some of the Republicans that are opposing this, they're opposing it mostly for the very reason, and I believe this was in the Mother Jones article, that they don't like the idea of giving any more power to the Obama administration. And that was their only reason. They know it's a corporate giveaway and they're all about that, but they're just but he kind of wants it and we really hate him. And that's the only reason. I just picture their spokespeople just sitting there just being yeah, it benefits Obama. We don't like that. Somebody tap the keg. And that's it. That's I mean, from strictly a political cooperation point, that's pretty sad. Even though I really disagree with Obama hardcore on this one, that's pretty sad. That's just that's total justification.
Right?
Obama wants it, so no. Okay.
Well, that's why I think some people have taken to opponents of it on the progressive side have even taken to calling it Obama trade in order to kind of Obamacare it.
Yeah, play the game.
Yeah, play the game. Play the conservative game to turn conservatives against what would be a disaster of a trade deal. And it's actually smart politicking, taking advantage of really dumb people.
I just couldn't help notice that. I think now more so than ever before, because it's so obviously a corporate giveaway. But because it's something Obama wants, some on the right are no. It almost seems like no matter what Obama is involved with, no matter what it is, even if it's their bedfellows, they're going to be against it and try to destroy it. Which means, Jeff, I think the best thing that could happen for this country when Obama gets out of office, his next job should be CEO of Goldman Sachs.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
So let's get one more side point to this, and I just want to point this out as you've glossed over the fact that it is a corporate giveaway. One of the most outspoken supporters of the TPP is the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and which is of course the main lobbying group for large multinational corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are, if the chamber is for it, odds are it's a bad deal.
Yeah, one small thing I want to add to that real quick before we move on. Another one that's also right alongside them is ExxonMobil, which really makes you point to the environmental things that people
Right.
are concerned about. When ExxonMobil's really pushing something,
Yeah,
that
you know
ain't
it's
good.
bad. You
Yeah.
know it's bad.